or Cindy A. I'm going to have, I don't know her. I heard her sponsor speak this morning. And I've asked Darcy to introduce her because Darcy knows her. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy.
Hey everyone, I'm Darcy. I'm an addict. How's everyone doing out there? Okay, so we want to show Cindy what Ocean Shores is all about. So how's everyone doing out there? Woo! I'm so excited to be here. I met Cindy, you guys, 4 years ago on accident. That's what we call it, right? And I was actually with Brian in Baltimore. I was there working, and he took me to this St. Patrick's thing in March, and she was sitting up there, and we met and hugged and took a picture like we do. And then we conversed on social media, and used for the right purposes, sometimes that can be an amazing tool. And we have been talking back and forth ever since. And we share together, honestly and openly, about what's going on in each other's lives. And it's been an amazing experience for me. We don't have to live right next to each other to connect. You know, we don't have to be right next to each other to share those messages of recovery and to hear and listen and love each other. And we've shared that together. And I got to pick her up from the airport and a couple other members, and it was really cool. And we went to a couple different places downtown Seattle, and we went to the EMP. And, you know, I was like, do you want to go in, Cindy? And she's like, well, because they had all these Star Trek signs all over. Because it was like, and I'm not endorsing that at all. But so there was like, I don't know what Spock does. I don't know. But anyways, there was like all these signs around and everything. And I was like, so Cindy, she's like, and we went in anyways. And we could barely get Cindy out of there because she had this, there was this like thing where you could do this DJing thing, and she disappeared for like the longest time. And we're looking for her, and she's doing this. All, like she's into it. And I go, what are you doing? She goes, I'm caught up in the grips of the, she's like, I got stuck here. So, the cool thing is that I got to learn that she's super fun to be with too, and she stuck it through. We drove back from Seattle to hear that same night, and she made it through. And I'm just really happy to introduce someone who I know to be a wonderful mother and a strong and courageous woman in recovery, Cindy A. from Baltimore, Maryland.
I'm an addict named Cindy. So what's up, Clean and Free 2017? So I got to change the energy level a little bit because I'm like really, really excited. Probably won't need this microphone. First and foremost, I want to thank God. I truly believe that it is only through God's grace and mercy and the program of Narcotics Anonymous that I'm here and I'm alive and clean. My experience is yesterday, my strength is today, and my hope is for tomorrow. And I want to get a couple of things out of the way before I get started, some housekeeping things. And, I just want to thank everybody. Because, this is my first time in Seattle, and you guys rock. And so, I've been to some places, right? I'm a traveling addict, and I got to tell you that I have been to places where they were not very welcoming. I've been to places where they weren't very loving. Convention, and I was there for 4 days, and it took until the last day until I barely got a hug. How about that? And so, like, look, check it out. There's nothing more than coming somewhere and experiencing the love. And you guys do that. And so, if you're on the any committee, or if you've had any parts in making this convention possible this weekend, could you please stand up where you are? Can we please give them a hand? Wow. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for bringing us together so that we can celebrate this weekend the gift of recovery. I want to give a special shout out and thank you to all the people on the committee, and absolutely Kia. I want to say thank you. Ray, I want to say thank you. Communication is vital. You know, they've constantly kept in communication with me for a while, a couple months ago, leading up to. Are you ready? Can we give her a hand? That's a lot of work. And I want to say thank you to Darcy. And I think it's pretty cool, right? And a lot of the speakers, you know, have spoke about it this weekend, that when we got to the airport, they kind of assigned a hostess to everybody. It's the first time that I've ever seen that. And it's been absolutely amazing. And thank you to all of the hosts for basically catering to us all weekend, because that's what you've done. You know, and Darcy, she's just so excited, right? And it's so exciting to see somebody as excited as I am, right? And Darcy's like this little thing, right? And I don't know if like I wore her out, because like at the end, like she just gave me the fucking keys to the car and said, just take it, right? So I don't know, you know, but like at the airport, like she came running around, right? Like I was at baggage claim. She came running around 100 mile an hour, right? Woo! Screaming, brrr, like I thought the airport was on fire, right? And so like, look, man, I'm excited, right? And I hope that you are just as excited as we are. Because I'm excited about it all, right? I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be clean. I'm excited to be in recovery. I'm excited about my life. I'm excited that like last night I slept in a bed with some clean sheets, right? I'm excited that I got up this morning and I actually took a shower, because like where I come from, there wasn't no showers. Because like baths weren't a part of my story, right? And I'm like excited that I actually brushed my teeth with an actual toothbrush. And like I'm excited that I actually went into the bathroom and I was able to go to the bathroom in something that actually flushed, right? Because like I don't know where you come from, right? But like I was told long ago that we need to stick to the basics, because if you stick to the basics, you ain't never got to go back. Right? And if we don't get disconnected, then we ain't never got to worry about getting reconnected. And so I'm excited about the small things. I'm excited that like I woke up here, right, with you people this morning, and I didn't have to worry about walking the streets of Baltimore City to get another bag of dope, right? And so like, check it out. I say this all the time, right? If you are not excited about your recovery, your disease is excited about your relapse, right? So you better get excited. So my clean date is November 24th of 1997. I've been here for 19 years. I came to Narcotics Anonymous. I was 24 years old. I've got one clean date here. If you're coming back off of a relapse, welcome home. But relapse is not a requirement. We can have one clean date, right? My home group is the Recover Relapse group. We meet on Monday night at 7 o'clock. I'm a proud member of the Baltimore area of Narcotics Anonymous. Let me tell you about my home group. My home group's in the hood, right? Something about the hood. Everywhere I go, right? I want to go to the hood. You ever go places and you're like, how the hell did you use here? So my home group has no heat. It has no air condition, right? I got a home group member here. So I'm telling the truth, right? And when you go to the bathroom, we have hand sanitizer because there's no water. And I love my home group, right? And so you freeze your ass off in the winter, and it's hot as hell in the summer. And I think 2 years ago when I celebrated in hat and gloves, right? But let me tell you what you will get if you're ever there. Please come by. You will get a cup of coffee, right? You will get a seat. You will get a message, and you will get a hug, right? And I still believe that a simple, loving hug can make all the difference in the world. And I love the format of my home group because it's different every week, right? And like the first Monday of the month, it's a meeting on an open discussion. And then the second Monday, it's a meeting on a step in a tradition. And then the third week, it's a meeting on the Just for Today out of the meditation book. The fourth Monday is a speaker meeting on an IP pamphlet. And if there's a fifth Monday, we have a speaker that speaks on a topic out of the Living Clean book, right? And so why am I saying all this? I'm saying this because I believe that there is a difference between having a sponsor and being sponsored, right? There is a difference between having a home group and being an active home group member. There is a difference between like working steps, writing them on paper, and reading the answer to your sponsor, or trying to practice the principles to the best of our ability in all of our affairs. There's a difference between being clean and being in recovery, but I understand that we got to get clean time in order to recover, right? And so there's a difference. And so I stick to the basics. Those who go to meetings regularly stay clean. I don't know what your regularly is, but my regularly is regularly. It ain't one a week. Meeting makers make it. I make meetings. I'm a meeting maker. But I believe it takes more than a meeting to make it. Because my ass will be here making meetings, suffering in silence, and I'll be clean and crazy. Right? And so I'm going to slow down for a little bit because I'll get so excited I get ahead of myself. So I want to take you back. Basic text says we were in the grip of a hopeless dilemma, the solution of which is spiritual in nature. Right? So we're talking about clean and free, spiritual in nature. It's bad enough to be in a dilemma, but to be in a hopeless dilemma. It talks about being in the grip, right? Check it out. I've been in the grip using. I've been in the grip clean. I got a story using. My story clean is probably worse. Right? In any Narcotics Anonymous meeting, but our primary purpose is to carry the message to the addict that still suffers. And I'm here to tell you that the addict that is still suffering is not always the newcomer. Old timers need love too. And old timers suffer too. And so I'm going to share a little bit with you later about my being caught up in the grip clean. But whether I was caught up using, caught up clean, whatever, it took me a long time to understand that the solution is spiritual in nature. Because when you're caught up, you're focused on the pain, not the solution. And I certainly wasn't focusing on no spiritual in nature. And so I started using when I was 11 years old. At 11, I started using the drug. But the drug of choice came way, way before that. The drug of choice was fantasy. I'm an only child. Some people have a story of being an only child as a spoiled child. That's not my story. For me, an only child was a lonely child. We were very poor. And so I had this drug of choices fantasy, and I created imaginary friends in my life. And I grew up in a household. My parents split up when I was 11 years old. My father is Italian and a boxer. So I come from this Italian Catholic family. That is grounds for dysfunction right there. And I always thought that my father wanted a boy. And so I spent all this time trying to seek approval that I never got. And so I grew up like a tomboy because I thought that that's what my father wanted. And so I did boy things, right? I played with BB guns. We played a game called War. And we rode mopeds and dirt bikes, and we went fishing, and we went hunting. And Barbie dolls were not a part of my story. And my father would tie a punching bag to the tree and put boxing gloves on me to teach me how to fight. And my father still thinks that he is Elvis Presley and Rocky Balboa. And my mother, and I'm going to talk more about her later too, right? My mother was verbally, physically, emotionally abusive. Number one defect is perfectionism. And so I escaped at 11 years old. And I climbed out the bedroom window, and I did what we do. And so I used from the age of 11 to 24. And at the end of the road, my drug of choice was heroin. And heroin took me places I never thought I would go, and it made me do things I never thought I would do, and it turned me into a person in which whom I never thought that I would become. And at the end of the road, I walked the streets of Baltimore City, and I did whatever it took to get a bag of dope. Whatever it took. You know, and I say I got one clean date in Narcotics Anonymous because, you know, relapse is not a part of my story because I believe that you got to be working a program of recovery in order to relapse. I just went to meetings and I never did that. Took a break, went to meetings and used. It took me 13 treatment centers to realize that just maybe heroin was a problem. And so I was in and out and in and out and in and out. And I remember my last go-round. I went to inpatient treatment program in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I was there for 35 days. And I remember my parents coming up to the treatment center to visit me, and they had this bright idea of me moving into this recovery house. And I'm not promoting it, it's a part of my story, thank God for it. And so all I wanted to do was go home. Because I come from a big Italian, family, and I'm close to my family. I wanted to go home. And that was as close to home as I was going to get. And I remember calling my mother off from treatment, and I asked her if I could come home, and she said, "What home? Get a year clean, and I'll think about it." And so I moved into this house, and I learned early on what it means to change people, places, and things. I learned early on what it meant that, like Cindy, they will get you high before you get them clean. Look, if you're new to Narcotics Anonymous, welcome home. And if you're old, please stay because I need you. And if you're coming back off of a relapse, welcome back home. And if you got 1 foot in and 1 foot out, that's okay too. Welcome. And if you've been in and out and in and out and in and out, that's okay too. Welcome. Sometimes I hear people say who's in and out, in and out, in and out all the time, right? And they'll say, well, they don't want it. Well, why the fuck do they keep coming in and out for? Because the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop using. So I moved into this house in the hood. Can't seem to get out the hood. And so, when you did your tribute like this evening, I can't even count on my fingers and toes the funerals that I've been to. I got a best friend I've been best friends with for 32 years. The relationship started when we were 11 years old smoking Love Boat behind 7-Eleven. We grew up together. Marriage, babies, everything. We were a year apart in clean time. When she had 13 years clean, she called me up and she told me that she relapsed. She ain't made it back yet. I got another girlfriend of mine that I was really close with for like 10 years. We traveled together. We carried this message together. She relapsed. She ain't made it back yet. And the one best friend, I moved into the recovery house and, I was in there for like almost 60 days and then I hooked up with her. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I live in this house and I got 60 days clean, so I'm good. I didn't know about changing people, places, and things. What's the old saying? You keep going into a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut, right? And so she went downtown to cop, and I said, well, I'm just going for the ride. Because I got 60 days clean, I'm good. If you ain't changed people, places, and things yet, you might want to take a look at the first step. So we went downtown, she copped, she did her thing, I'm good, I got 60 days clean. We're on our way back to the house, she goes into the Royal Farm store to get something to drink, and by the time... I would say thank God for second chances, but I'm on like 14 now. And thank God that somebody saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. Find somebody in recovery who believes in you and wants to help you. And so they kicked me out of that house, right? But by the grace of God, they put me in another one. And I moved into that house on November 24th of 1997, and the journey began, right? And I haven't found it necessary to use. And I lived in that house for 6 months. I wasn't court ordered. But check it out, I didn't have nowhere to go. Check it out, today, I have nowhere to go. Because I wouldn't want to be anywhere than right where I'm at. And so I lived in this house for like 6 months. And I heard something really profound that I had to do here. 2 words: grow up. I had to become a productive member of society. I had to get a job. They told me I had to pay rent. What? Somebody said, what? Yeah, because when you come from the street, you ain't paying for shit. Ain't no rent. And look, the house that I lived in, right? This was a house in the hood. And we had cats. The house had cats, but then we had rats, and I couldn't tell the difference between the rats or the house cats. And I didn't have a room, but they put me in a basement, and I didn't have a bed, but they gave me a mat that looks like a mat, like in a gymnasium. And a cat would come down and piss on the mat. You know anything about cat piss, you can't clean that shit up. And every day I'd leave and I'd go to work and I would catch 4 buses. And every day the dope man would be on the corner asking me, you trying to go? Where the hell were you at when I was using? You wasn't trying to give me nothing then. And I lived in this house with 10 women. 10 women. Can you imagine? And 1 bathroom. You talk about spiritual in nature. I was practicing shit before I even understood what the hell it was. And I hated women. I hated you because I hated me. And I didn't trust you because I couldn't trust me. And I was afraid of you. But as rough as it was in that house, I was grateful. A grateful addict will never use. And so all I know is that I was grateful that I had a place to lay my head. So the journey began, right? And I remember, like, I had to pay rent living in this house, and, you know, they had rules. They had chores. And if you didn't do your chore, you got fined. And I wasn't allowed to hang with the opposite sex. They said you cannot get a ride from a male. And if you do, then you get fined. My rent was $500 a month. No, it really wasn't. It racked up. Because I couldn't follow directions. So, the journey begins. Many of the challenges that we face have concrete symptoms, but are actually spiritual in nature. It's hard to spot a spiritual crisis. Usually it is disguised as a crisis in the following things: in our relationships, in our finances, in our career, and in our family. Many of the challenges that we face have concrete symptoms. I never understood that the symptoms were concrete due to the challenges that I faced clean here in those areas of my recovery. And I never knew that the solution was going to be spiritual in nature. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about relationships. And everybody just got antsy. And so I moved out of this recovery house, and I moved in with someone. I took all the suggestions that were given to me when I got here except for one. Cindi, do not get into a relationship in your first year of recovery. I did when I had 2 weeks clean. I started dating someone. When I had 6 months clean, I moved out of the recovery house and I moved in with him. About 3 years later, he used. You know what happens to people who don't go to meetings anymore? They don't know what happens to people who don't go to meetings anymore. And so I got into this relationship, and we were together for 10 years, and we got married, and we were married for 5. And after a couple of years, he relapsed. And I made a decision to stay with him for 10 years while he used. And I don't suggest that anybody do that. But there's something that happens when you get yourself backed up into a corner that you might not come out of clean. 10th step. So here I was with 10 years clean, and I had a decision to make. It's not easy starting over in Narcotics Anonymous. And so with 10 years clean, I had to make a decision to do something different. Because I was going to use. You know, and when I got here, I said that anything that I put in front of my recovery, I'm going to lose. And I'm not using no matter what. And so I don't care what it is or who it is. If you got to go, then you got to go. And so at 10 years clean, I made a decision to leave my marriage. And I didn't know where I was going to go or what I was going to do. So I moved in with my father. And I moved into my father's basement. And I stayed there for about 6 months, and then I moved out into an apartment. There's a journey to this. It's difficult to practice spiritual principles and to live in the nature of a spirit when you don't even know who you are. And so I found myself making poor choices in my recovery, right? As a direct result of how I felt. The steps are the solution to our problem, which is spiritual in nature. I didn't come into the program of Narcotics Anonymous brimming with honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. I didn't come here with low self-esteem. I came with no self-esteem, no self-worth, no self-respect. I didn't like you because I didn't like me. I didn't trust you because I didn't trust me. And at the end of the day, I couldn't even stand to be me. And I couldn't even stand to be in my own skin. Check it out. I'm not confused about why I used. I used because I did not like or love myself. I hated myself. I didn't like the way I looked. I didn't like the way I walked. I didn't like the way I talked. I didn't like my parents. I didn't like where I came from. I didn't like the home that I grew up in. I didn't like who I was, who I became. I didn't like nothing about me. All I know is that I wanted to die. And so my prayer life has changed since I've gotten here. Like when I was using, my prayer life was all about the jackpot prayer. Like, if you just get me out of this one, I'll never do it again. But have you ever had the jackpot prayer clean? If you just get me out of this one, I'll never do it again. Be careful what you pray for. Because if you pray for something and then you get it and you can't handle it. I prayed for him and got him and said, I'm praying, please take him away. And then the prayer changed. In utter desperation, when the prayer comes, why did you wake me up? No, I didn't want to get up. And I understand today that, like, look, the obsession and the compulsion has been lifted. If God don't do nothing else for me, he's already done enough. And I'm not talking about just the obsession and the compulsion to use drugs. I'm talking about the obsession and the compulsion to use other things. What about shopping? Sex, drugs, gambling, him, her, shoes, clothes, food. Are you really fixing with food because it's comforting? Or are you fucked up because it's not what you're eating, it's what's eating you? And so I thought that I had did this work. I had 10 years clean with my good shared ass. And Karen and I have talked about it, right? That at the end of the second step, the last line, when our belief has grown, then and only then, right? We move on to the third step. My belief didn't grow. If my belief doesn't grow in the second step, then how can I move to the third step and turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand him, when the truth is I really don't understand him because I don't know who he is, because I ain't got a relationship with him, only to get to the sixth step, be fucked up with defects, go into a seventh step and can't have him humbly remove my shortcomings because, again, I don't know who him is. And so I thought, recovery is an inside job. There's no outside solution for an inside problem. Money, property, and prestige does not equal recovery, Cindy. All the houses and the boats and the cars and the jet skis and the shit you had does not equal recovery, Cindy. The degrees that you got and the letters behind your name does not equal recovery. The amount of women that you sponsor does not equal recovery. How many CDs you got and conventions you share does not equal recovery, because nothing equals recovery but recovery. So look, I'm sharing with you who I am. It's not easy talking about me. It's not easy. It takes courage to get butt naked and let you know who I really am. Right? But thank you for letting me be me and letting me know that if you're sitting in this room and you're high now, welcome to Narcotics Anonymous. And if you're sitting in this room and you got shit on you, I identify with that. Because when I went to the meeting and they said in the prologue, if you got any drugs or drug paraphernalia, could you please take it outside and come back in because we want you and not your drugs? Fuck you, I ain't getting rid of my drugs. And if you're sitting in this meeting and you're like, acting out clean, first step, how is the disease active? And if you're gambling or you're shopping or you're eating, welcome to Narcotics Anonymous. And if you're in a relationship and you're cheating on them, welcome to Narcotics Anonymous. See, I like to talk about the shit that nobody likes to talk about. But let me tell you something. What happens when I talk about the things that nobody likes to talk about is I get another day clean because we're at a convention that talks about clean and free. And just for today, I can honestly stand here and tell you that I'm not just clean, but I am clean and free. And there is nothing, right? Look, there is no other greater feeling in the world than not have to worry about being locked and loaded and living in bondage. There's nothing worse than living in bondage clean. I challenge you to set yourself free. No is a complete sentence. We don't have to people please no more. No. Ask my boyfriend. He'll tell you I've gotten very good at no. No. He said, I think you learned that on me. No. So look, I left the marriage and I moved into an apartment and I didn't have a God in my life and I really didn't have steps in my life. And it's a direct result of being clean and living dirty and dying on the inside and smiling on the outside because I want you to think that everything is okay with me when it's not. Because the truth is that I really ain't did the work because what happened was I wind up getting into another relationship because I'm still coming from the street. The 7-step talks about the streets don't live here no more, but I'm still living here like I'm living in the street because I ain't really done the work yet to come out of the street. And the best way to get over one is to get up underneath of another, right? So I get up underneath of another. And then I get locked and loaded in bondage for about 3 more years. And we moved into this house together. And it just happens to be the house that I currently live in. And then 6 months later, he made a decision to do something different. And he cheated on me, right? I'm really, really grateful that I don't need neon signs anymore. Right? Boop, 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 boop. I used to see them, go anyway. Love that shit. Insanity. The more chaos, the better. The more fucked up I was, the more you loved me. But then I started to see it, and I was like, woohoo. I started backing up a little bit. It's one thing to suffer and to be in pain using, but you ain't experienced pain until you've been in pain clean. You ain't been in a fetal position until you've been in a fetal position standing up. That's suffering. So I had to have the neon light. Because I tell you, I'm coming from a place of low self-esteem and no self-worth. And don't you get it? I'm willing to accept because to settle for just a little bit is better than not settling and having nothing at all. And so I was driving one day and I got a phone call, but it really wasn't a phone call because it was an accident, because it was a pocket call. And when the pocket call came, I heard him having sex with her. I needed a neon light. I said, thank you, God. But I prayed for that. So you got to be careful what you pray for, because you just might get it. And when you do, are you going to be able to handle the truth? And I'd love to be able to tell you that it ended there, but it didn't. Because I let go of stuff with claw marks. And I always thought that the letting go was hard, but it wasn't. It was the holding on that was hard. And so I left that relationship and I winded up getting into another relationship. And check this out. I got involved with somebody who was involved with somebody who was involved with somebody. Somebody's identifying. And I caught up in the grip. Clean, I couldn't get out. I just wanted to drive by. Yes, ladies do drive-bys. And I couldn't get out. And it took me 3 years. I hated myself clean. And I've heard a lot of stories about people relapsing, but I've also heard a lot of stories about people committing suicide clean. I'm talking about when the disease is so loud that it talks to you in your own voice, and it will say to you, you know what? A bag of dope looks really good right now because you can kick a dope habit in 3 days. And that looked easier than kicking a habit of another human being. And so I found myself in a relationship with somebody who was with somebody who was with somebody. And check this out. There's somebody that I was having dealings with that I thought that I was in a relationship, but I really wasn't in no relationship, right? Was HIV positive, and I was having unprotected sex. Because I hated myself. Look, I'm going to tell you that it is only through God's grace and mercy. Look, I used to go to meetings and I used to hear people talk about that all the time, that it's only through God's grace and mercy. I didn't understand what that meant. I understand today God has his hands on me. In spite of the decisions that I have made. So when the spiritual crisis comes and it disguises itself, talking about the challenges that have concrete symptoms. When I went to the Chase Braxton Clinic in Baltimore to get tested, I accepted where I was. I accepted whatever was going to come my way as a result of the choices that I made. Consequences to my behavior. And I knew what the counselor was going to say when she came out. But when she came out, she looked at me and said, all I know is somebody's watching over you. Only through God's grace and mercy. I didn't see the blessing. I can't see the blessing when I'm caught up in the grip. It talks about finances, being caught up in the grip in finances. Look, check this out. I've been on both sides of the fence here. I've judged people. I've gossiped about people. I've gotten judged. Right. I've gotten gossiped about you. I was because of the things that you went through. And I would say to myself, right, like, well, how you got all that clean time and you got fired from your job? Or what kind kind of program are you working if, like, you're in a relationship and you're stepping outside of your relationship? Or, like, what step is that you got all this clean time and you're just financially fucked up? Until I got all this clean time and I got fired from a job and I got financially fucked up and my relationships were whack, right? And all of these areas of my life have gotten so much better. Thank God, Narcotics Anonymous, I didn't give up 5 minutes before the miracle. The solution is in the steps. Thank God, right? And so, like, I'll tell you this story about my car. I had this car, right? And, like, I couldn't afford the car. Like, between the car payment and the car insurance, it was like $1,000 a month. It was crazy. And my father was like, you know, just get rid of the car. But I looked good in it. I looked good in the car. And so, like, you know, I called my girlfriend up and I said, look, I need to hide my car. She said, what are you talking about? I said, well, they're looking for it. I got to hide it. She said, well, take it over to my house and park it out back in the driveway. Oh, don't find people to co-sign your shit around here. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, well, you mean the house that you got that's being foreclosed on? She said, yeah, that house. So I took the car over there and I parked it in the driveway and I thought I was doing some slick shit, and a couple days went by and I went back to get my car and it was gone. I called her up and I said, well, they got my car. She said, no, asshole, you parked it in the wrong driveway. And so God will do for me what I cannot do for myself. Just a little something about finances. Careers. Dropped out of high school in the 8th grade. Mom and dad have a 6th grade education. Going to high school, graduating from high school was unheard of. Nobody in my family has a diploma. Nobody in my family ever made it out of high school. When I got clean, I went back to school. I started off with GED preparation classes. I went to take the GED test. The first time I took it, I failed by 1 point. I went back and I took it again. Because you told me, keep going back. See, I'm real good at starting stuff, but I don't finish anything. I went back and I took the test and I passed. I got my GED in Narcotics Anonymous. Look, we talk about we leave stuff at the door. We don't talk about what we had, what you used, how much you used, who your connections were, yada, 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 yada. But we do share the hope. Right? We share the hope. Because, like, look, where I come from, I was told that you ain't shit and you ain't ever going to be shit. And shit from shit means shit. Right? And shit, I'm the shit. And I don't think I'm all that, but I know that I ain't nothing neither. And I got a GED in Narcotics Anonymous. And I decided to take it a little bit further and go try my hand at this thing called college. Right? And I felt like I had to work 10 times harder than the person that was sitting next to me. And I have a degree today. Right? And I have some letters behind my name today, right? I've been in the field of substance abuse and mental health for 19 years, right? Recently, I've made a slight change. So, something came my way. And you know, this is why I share this, because we give each other hope, right? And Richie shared about it the other day, about a sponsee that he has that did like 17 years in the penitentiary, and he's a doctor now. Only God can do that. And so I don't believe in this, I can't do this and I can't do that because of this and because of that, and I can't get this job because I got a record and I got this and I got that. Look, what God's got for me is for me, right? And so a job came my way, and I had to go through all this stuff. You know, the criminal background and all this stuff. And it took me 3 months to get through a security clearance. 3 months. I'm talking about somebody that came here at 24 years old, at 80 pounds, from the gutter, right? I looked like death, I walked like death, I smelled like death. 31 counts of theft on my record, 3 months of a security clearance, and I passed. Because God is good. And so I got this thing now where I'm like running around Baltimore City prisons. And I love it. I love it. And I just started school again because I decided to torture myself a little more again. And I'm on my way to another degree in criminal justice. And you know what? I'm not really sure yet what I'm going to do with that. But what I do know is that if I stay in position, God will do the promoting and he will put me where he wants me to be. But in the meantime, I need to let you know that we are the voice, right? And we are the person that, look, they can't see, they can't do none of that, right? So like, I'm able to carry a life-saving message with like literature that we have to inmates in Baltimore City in the prison system to give a shot of hope. Family. So, my mother. I've always had this love-hate relationship with my mother. And let me tell you about my mother. My mother's prejudiced. My mother was emotionally, verbally, mentally, spiritually abusive all my life. When I had 10 years clean, I finally broke the umbilical cord from my mother. I finally was able to step up to the plate and break the anger, fear, and resentment, the triangle of self-obsession between me and my mother. I no longer look for the approval because I know that the only one that I need to get the approval from is from God himself. But my mother was there for me every step of the way. My mother believed in me when nobody else did. My mother prayed for me when nobody else did. My mother was there every time I walked through the doors of the detox unit, and I would get out and she would say to me, you know what, I love you and you're going to make it this time. And I would get out and I would use. And I would go back in and she'd say, I love you and you're going to make it this time. And I'd get out and I'd use. And I did it over and over and over and over again. And then she came to the meeting and she watched me pick up a 1-day key tag. And then she came back and she watched me pick up a 30 and a 60 and a 90. And then she came back when I picked up a 6-month key tag and she showed up with a half of a cake. And then she came back on my 1 year clean and she showed up with a whole cake. Right? And my mother is still showing up 19 years later, but I got to tell you, I love my mother, but it's been a struggle. And so, you know, my mother, like, she still doesn't get this. To me, like, where are you going this weekend? I mean, like Mexico, Ohio, Czechoslovakia, where are you going, right? Because I travel a lot for Narcotics Anonymous. And she'll say to me like, "Phew, you're going to another one of them conventions? You're going another one to them speaker jams? You're going to another one of those meetings? You're going again with those people?" And I'm like, "Mom, I am those people." And she's like, "But I don't understand. I mean, you got 19 years clean. Why you got to keep doing that stuff?" I said, "Check this out. Let me break this down. Do you remember when I was using and I came to your house and I took all your shit to the hock shop and you ain't getting nothing back?" "Yeah, I remember." I said, "Well, when the day comes that I don't think that I need to go to a convention or a speaker jam or a meeting to be with those people, I'm coming back for all your shit." And she said, "You go to a meeting now. You have a great time in Seattle." So I do want to share about this, got to brag about my children for a minute, right? I have a 24-year-old son. He's amazing as a result of the program of Narcotics Anonymous and what the 12 steps have done in my life. My son is a professional bowler. He made it into the PBA at the age of 18. My son just bought his first home. He just had his first child. I just became a grandmother for the first time. Get it right, I'm grandma, right? And people that have grandchildren will understand this because I didn't, and you guys told me that when I do, I'm going to experience a love like I've never experienced before. And I have this little girl in my life, right? And her name is Abella. And I so wish I could show you a picture, right? I love her. And I can't get enough of her. And I want to see her all the time. And I want to be with her all the time, right? And I just wrote a paper on Abella in school and I got an A, right? Because Abella makes me want to do better. She makes me want to be a better person. Because she never has to see the life that my children saw, right? And then there's my daughter. And I have a 25-year-old daughter. And my daughter just bought her first home. And she's pregnant with her first child. They hit me hard, man, back to back. And she's having a boy. So now I'm getting ready to have my first grandson, and she's due at the end of April. My daughter works for a law firm. She's getting ready to graduate in legal studies. She's going to law school. And I'm a little sad because she's moving out, And my daughter is such an example of this program, but she's not one of us because she's one of the most loving, selfless people that I've ever met. And she called me yesterday and I was here and she said, "Mom, I got the keys to my house. And I'm going to go home and her room is going to be empty." And I'm happy for her, but I'm sad, And I don't know why I'm sad, because my gas and electric bill is going to get cut in half. The disease of addiction robbed me. There's two things we give our children. We give them roots and we give them wings. I remember throwing them in cribs and shoving bottles in their mouths, and they sat there for days in shitty diapers. The disease of addiction robbed me from the benefits of being able to give my children their roots. But today I can stand before you and tell you that because of the program of Narcotics Anonymous, recovery has given me the ability to give them their wings. And so I'm going to tie this in together, right? Because, look, in spite of all the crazy insanity and the relationships and the finances and all the stuff, it's led me to a place, a blessing that I never saw coming, that ended up being spiritual in nature. My mother is prejudiced. Diversity is our strength. I now have diversity in my home. Me and my boyfriend, we kid around a lot and we say, you know, we have service positions at home. He's the coffee maker. He makes me coffee every morning. My daughter was the door greeter. Anytime somebody knock on the door, I don't know, he says I'm the main speaker at home too. I love you guys. So, my son has a girlfriend who's Mexican. So, my granddaughter is Italian and Mexican. See, God will do for you, right? He changes hearts. Because, see, it's a beautiful thing when the program in Narcotics Anonymous can work in your life. But when you see it work in the lives of your family and your parents and your children, he changed the heart of my mother, right? My daughter has a boyfriend who's African American, and they're getting ready to have a half white, half black baby, right? I'm Italian. My boyfriend's fucking Puerto Rican, right? Now that's some diversity for your ass. Mom didn't have a shot in hell. And it's so funny, right? Like, we just got back from Puerto Rico, right? And like, I was in school the other night, and the girl that was sitting next to me, she was like, wow, you're going to Seattle this weekend? And I'm like, yeah, man, ain't it cool? I've never been there before. And she's like, shit, didn't you just get back from Puerto Rico? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, I want your life. Right? Like, nobody ever wanted my life before, right? So, like, we just spent 9 days in Puerto Rico, right? And, like, I don't speak Spanish, okay? And so I'm in Puerto Rico, and I get pulled over, and I don't know why I got pulled over. I had my seatbelt on. I didn't think I was speeding. But anyway, I get pulled over, and the policia cannot speak English. Right? So this is good for me, right? Because I think I got a ticket coming. So I'm telling my boyfriend, don't open your mouth. Right? Because he speaks 3 languages, English, Spanish, and bullshit. Okay? So he's going to kill me after this meeting, boy. Now, so the policia, right, pulls me over, and he comes up to the weekend, and he's like, brrr, right? And he's saying all this stuff, and, you know, so I look up, and I'm like, hi. And he's like, you speak Spanish? And I'm like, no español. And he's like, oh, just go, go, go. So I got out the ticket, right? I'm like, cool. So then the next day, here we are again. Now I'm at the red light. And I see one of us. And he's panhandling, right? And he's geeking like a mother. And I'm peeping him out, right? Because you know us, we got like radar, right? I can tell you what you're on. I can tell you if it's dope, if it's coke, right? If it's Love Boat, if it's benzo, all that. So I'm like, here he comes, right? So he comes up to the window, so I tried it again, and I'm like, no español. And he's like, well, can I have some fucking money then? Only we can do that shit, right? So we have a convention in Maryland in April every year. It's in Ocean City, Maryland. It's the largest convention on the East Coast. It has about 9,000 people. If you're ever there, please come. I go every year. I ain't missed a year since I've been clean. My boyfriend went, and it was his first time there in 10 years, and that's where we met. He's from the Bronx, New York. I'm from Baltimore. There's a Bronx in the house. And, I had to do something different, man. And like, I remember talking to Richie one time, right? And Richie said, you gotta sit in a waiting room. I'm like, what the hell is that? Well, you need to sit by yourself. Well, who the hell does that? It was necessary. I took his suggestion. I sat in a waiting room. I got with God. I got with the steps. The story became spiritual in nature. And so we met in Ocean City, and we had a long-distance relationship between Baltimore and the Bronx for a while. And I took a ride to the Bronx, and we had our first date. And I remember him asking me how much clean time I had. And then when I asked him, I was like, oh, please don't be a newcomer. Please don't be a... Right. No offense, newcomer. So we're 60 days apart in clean time. And so I share that because we have 60 days apart in clean time. We've been to all the same places. We know all the same people, and we never met. We never knew each other. Thank God, because I wasn't ready. And God brought us together. I believe that. And his name is Angel, and he is my angel. And what I got in touch with is that in order to have a king, Cindi, you must be prepared to become a queen. And I became a queen, and I attracted my king. I don't know what he's going to do now because he blames everything on my daughter. Like, I have OCD really bad, like around the house. So if I come home and there's like crumbs on the counter and shit, I'm like with the crumbs on the counter, and I'll say something to him, and he'll be like, Ashley did it. Ashley does everything. Ashley did it. And I said, well, what are you going to do when Ashley moves out? He said, Princess did it. Princess is the cat. We do recover. Listening to other addicts share without judging them is the beginning of listening to our own heart without judgment or punishment. Our ability to feel joy and gratitude can be a direct result of the suffering that we have endured. We need to love each other here. We need to lift each other up. Richie said the other day, thank you for loving me for who I am and not what I have, because I don't have nothing. I disagree. He's got more than most. Because he's very, very rich in spirit. I was talking to a lady a little while ago, just about like the drugs here. Because she asked me, she said, well, what's your DOC? And I'm like, well, 845. So we were talking about replacement therapy. Methadone and Suboxone, if you don't know. Narcotics Anonymous is a program of total abstinence from all drugs. Right? But I will say this. If you're on methadone or you're on Suboxone, please keep coming back. Right? Because my job is to love you where you're at and not where I think that you should be. And my job is to love you until you can replace whatever it is that you need to replace with God in the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous. And all I know is that there is a God and I'm not it. And so we need not to judge one another, but love each other and lift each other up. You know, I don't know about this area. Where I come from, it's very like black and white. This town's white, this town's black. I'm not going over there to that town because I look like a raisin in a bowl of milk. I'm not going over there to that town because that's in the hood. Well, you went to the hood to use. Why can't you go to the hood clean? So we need to love each other. Okay, so I'm going to read one last thing and close it out because they told me I got 3 minutes. So I want to say something about this banner here. Whoever did this, beautiful. Thank you. So I'm going to tell you, as soon as I got here, I peeped out the banner. Give him a hand. Look, somebody had touched briefly on this, right? I have a favorite just for today. I read it all the time, right? It's called The Added Gift. The Added Gift talks about an addict that comes into the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous broken, but that rises up, right? And the banner looks just like that. I was the caterpillar that came into the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. I was broken, beaten, battered, scared little girl. Through the journey, I've been able to, become this beautiful butterfly. Look at the NA symbol in the wings of the butterfly. Only Narcotics Anonymous can do this, right? It says we see it happening among us every day. This miraculous turnabout is evidence of a spiritual awakening. Check this out. My foundation of my recovery is rooted in the steps. My foundation of my spirituality is rooted in my relationship with God. And the intimacy that I have in the relationship with the God that I have built will determine my willingness to practice spiritual principles. It is only through the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous, as a result of having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, are we able to get to a place that is spiritual in nature. Right? So it says that we watch them walk into their first meeting defeated, their spirits broken, their suffering is obvious, and their desire for help is even more apparent. They collect the welcome chip and they go back to their seats shaken by the effort. Check it out. I was so shaken by the effort I couldn't even get out of the seat. I didn't get up to get a one-day key tag because I couldn't get up. I was shitting, pissing, and throwing up all over myself, and I didn't sleep for 19 days. Somebody brought it to me. It says we see them again, and they seem a little more comfortable. They found a sponsor and are attending meetings every night. They still won't meet our glance, but they nod their heads in recognition as we share. We notice a spark of hope in their eyes, and they smile uncertainly when we encourage them to please keep coming back. I could not look at you. I was full of shame and guilt, right? But check it out, a few months later, though, they are standing straight up. They've learned to make eye contact. They're working the steps with their sponsor, and they are healing as a result. Narcotics Anonymous is a program of healing.